Akala chưa? Đấy.
Okay, everyone. Today we have to talk about a very major novel in Indian English literature, Untouchable by Mulk Raj Anand. I'm sure all of you are familiar with it. Many of you might have read it. A lot of the books that we have to prepare for the exam should be read in detail, and you should write in a very confident manner that you get after reading a book. You have to add your own original insights, and if everybody writes set answers, then all the answers will look the same. Sometimes in the answer sheet there should be some very brilliant, passionate answers that you have written from your own reading and understanding. So that is why many books I'm dealing with in very great detail, because otherwise you will not pass. Because if everybody writes in the same way, think of it from the examiner's point of view. Why would you get more marks than anybody else? We should never underestimate our enemies, and many people might be much better writers than you are. So this is one such novel that you should read, and because it's a small novel and also it's a very emotional novel, you can write beautifully whatever answer, essay or short answer you write. Because it's live class, I have a super long presentation and it's very detailed. It could be boring also, but because it's live, I have not included that many passages from the book. I hope you will read on your own as well. Please switch off your microphones. I'm muting people. I will unmute you later if necessary. Okay, so Untouchable. This is a very major novel in Indian English literature. As we all know, it is the first novel by Mulk Raj Anand, and Mulk Raj Anand is the first major writer in Indian English in the independence period. Mulk Raj Anand, Raja Rao and R.K. Narayan are the trio. As we know, they spearheaded the development of Indian English literature, especially the novel. And during this time, Indian English literature was rather conventional, looking at villages as very beautiful, idyllic places as against the cities. Talking about the aftermath of colonialism and caste system and other social evils on people, valorizing family and humanistic values. Mulk Raj Anand takes a very important place in this tradition. And after the trio, Anand, Rao and Narayan, all three of whom you have to study for the syllabus, for the exam, they went on, Indian writers in English went on to depict cities in a more positive light. They began to talk about Indians who have emigrated to other countries. They began to shift their focus from the sufferings and goodness of the village people towards a more urban, contemporary society. Even in Anand, Rao and Narayan, the society is contemporary, but it is a little mystical, and especially in Narayan, you have some strangers coming into Malgudi and things go wrong in Malgudi. There are remnants of an earlier tradition of writing from the 19th century or early 19th century, still discernible in their works. But these are the three people who established realism and humanism. In the case of Rao, also philosophy and spirituality for the first time in modern Indian English literature. Anand lived from 1905 to 2004. He had a very long life, and he established the contemporary style of writing in English. As you might know, he was born in Punjab, or actually he was born in Pakistan and Peshawar. And he came to Punjab in India because his mother was from there. His Lalu trilogy is deeply set in Punjab. So is his series of autobiographies, 7 Summers, of which only 4 he wrote. And Anand, as you know, was called India's Charles Dickens. He was one of the earliest writers in India who had a relationship with Western writers. He met the writers of the West and established a relationship with them for the first time. And Anand became one of the earliest Indian writers who got noticed in the West. He was associated with even writers like T.S. Eliot, and he brought a lot of respect for Indian writing in English because of his works. But he did not find it very easy to publish his works because they were very disturbing and they were not very rosy pictures of India or the British. So it was not a very easy task for him to get his works published. Then let me go on to talk about the author. He was an Indian writer in English, as I told you, born in Peshawar. He studied in Amritsar in Punjab, and he graduated in 1924. It was here in this college that he met the famous poet Iqbal. Iqbal was a very important poet in the independence period, and he wrote about nationalism. You might all have heard about him and know much about him. And Iqbal is incidentally the name of a poet who is very much aware of India's condition in this novel, Untouchable. In Untouchable, there is a poet called Iqbal, but that is not this Iqbal that I'm talking about. After this, he attended University College London as an undergraduate and also studied at Cambridge University. Now, these are very important things in those days. Everybody doesn't get to study at Cambridge or Oxford. And this really shaped Anand as a writer. As we know from Gandhi and Nehru's case also, most of the early writers and leaders of India were Western educated, and it is from the West that they got the very tools to fight the Westerners with. So that is like a post-colonial element in our early Indian writers and leaders. Somebody can do research on that, how the Western education of these early leaders shaped them as leaders and writers. It will come under a very modern perspective, culture studies perspective of in English in India. There's English in India, starting from the 18th or 19th century up to the period of Anand Rao and Narayan. That is a very, very fashionable area these days, especially outside Kerala. In Kerala also, as you know, there are many in MG University, in Kerala University, there are many academics who are specialized in this area. And so when you write about Untouchable or Malgudi Days or Serpent and the Rope, you should show some insight into English in India studies or whatever this discipline I'm talking about. That is 19th century to independence, up to the modern contemporary Indian English. That discipline, the awareness of that discipline you should show. Sit down and do some research on it. Mention some theorists in this regard, and also talk about language. Indian English language is much worked on in many universities. It is a very important area. Braj B. Kachru and people like that have contributed immensely to it. So when you write an essay or a short answer, just drop some of these major theorists from English in India studies, and that will give you a new, look. Your answer will look very different from the usual answers by other people, where only the story of Untouchable is written. What is important in writing an answer is not to use big words. Some of you, when you write your answers, are writing very exceptional answers, in the sense they use very, very good words and academic style. Well, if you're writing a paper or if you're writing a book, that would be good. But an answer is not like a paper or a book, because the examiner he doesn't want to be challenged intellectually by your answers. He doesn't want to take trouble reading your answers. You should not write too simply, but you should write moderately high level language, but don't make it too difficult and too complicated structures of sentences, etc. Instead, how you should enrich your answers is by writing variety of perspectives, connecting to various things, like the theorists of English in India. So that is how you should focus on enriching your answers. That's a very important thing. Now, I'm not just wasting time over this academic small talk. Let us talk about Mulk Raj Anand. He attended University College London and Cambridge University. Well, that is very important because at this time he got acquainted with a lot of English writers and theorists, like Dickens, Charles Dickens himself, he might have read. He famously got inspired by Freud and Jung. There is a lot of psychological treatment of the character in Untouchable. And it is very famous that Freud and Jung were influential on Anand. And also that he was influenced by Origin of Species and Darwinism. So you should use the word Darwinism when you write about Untouchable, because it is Darwinism that showed Anand that everybody is equal. We are all human. Darwin's theory of evolution and survival of the fittest is the bedrock of Anand's humanism. So that elements you should note. And he came to India. He wrote for Eliot's Criterion at that time. At that time when Eliot was also publishing his Wasteland and he was becoming very famous, he Anand effected a confluence between Indian literature and Indian culture, art, philosophy with British Western styles and culture. And then he went and met Mahatma Gandhi. I will be talking about that later also. He was inspired by Bertrand Russell. And all this has shown its influence on his later works. He went back to Europe and wrote Cooley. And then he went to Spain and met Ernest Hemingway. So Anand is more associated with, and also the introduction to Untouchable was written by E.M. Forster. So Forster, Eliot, then Ernest Hemingway, Russell, these are all people who are deeply associated with the modernist movement and the cultural transformations of England in the 20th century. And Anand definitely was influenced by these writers in his opposition to fundamentalism and fascism and against imperialism, against caste, as you see in Untouchable. So even though Untouchable is a very, very simple novel, so is Cooley. It is like a child's novel where, in a very straightforward, realist manner, he is talking about the trials and tribulations of an underprivileged man in India or a boy in India. Both these famous novels are the same, simple, novels that tell the story in a very realistic manner. It looks like it doesn't have much depth, but it has. When you do a detailed, in-depth analysis of these novels, you can find remnants of or traces of the modernist philosophy and all the, massive paradigm shifts that happened in Europe and West in the 20th century. So when you write your answer, give an indication of all that. Don't write like like Untouchable is a very simple novel where only the story is important and just tell the story like this. That is not how it is. So he was deeply involved with all these changes in the 20th century, and he came back to India in the wake of the Second World War, and he lived in India after that, and he wrote his autobiography. So when you read Anand's novels, actually his autobiography also has a very important role to play in it, because the man behind the novel is seen in the autobiography. Anand is the subject of innumerable critical works. So many, Srinivas Iyengar, M.K. Naik, then our uh, A.K. Mehrotra, Arvind Krishna Mehrotra, so many scholars of Indian English literature have written at length about Anand, including our own P.K. Rajan sir, who founded LitCrit. He was a very important critic of Mulk Raj Anand. And now, let me just go on to talk more about what is given in the slide. Anand, along with R.K. Narayan, Ahmad Ali, Twilight in Delhi, the author, Raja Rao, he was one of the first India-based writers in English to gain an international readership. That is a very important thing in the history of Indian English literature. He's also noted for being one of the first writers to incorporate Punjabi and Hindustani idioms into English. He wrote in a very Indian kind of English. Many times you will find that Untouchable is very simple because it is written in Indian English and using Indian idioms. But that is not because he did not know how to write in a native style, but he chose to write. He, again, in a post-colonial manner, he abrogated the traditions of the West, and he chose to forge an Indian English tradition in writing. So that is why his novel is simple, and that is why his novel is written in Indian English, like Nissim Ezekiel also in poetry. So that also should be noted as a very important um, um, contribution of Anand to our literature. He was the recipient of the civilian honor of the Padma Bhushan, and Anand is notable for his depiction of the lives of the poorer castes in traditional Indian society. Obviously, living in the independence period and deeply influenced by Mahatma Gandhi, you understand why he wrote about the underprivileged people. It is the result of his deep humanism that comes in the tradition of many greater thinkers and philosophers in India who went before Anand, starting from Buddha and Guru Nanak. You know, this understanding of the poorer people and the empathy with them is deeply religious. And it is a reformational view of religion and the society that you can see here. So Anand is a deeply sociological writer, and he writes within the tradition of India. It is not just one Charles Dickens that he is emulating, but the whole tradition of philosophers and religious reformers, Enlightenment thinkers of India who went before Anand actually seems to have inspired him intellectually and sociologically to give him a vision that depicted the lives of the poorer castes in traditional Indian society. So I'm saying that Anand is not just a simple writer. Untouchable is not just a small novel that you can easily study. It is not so. That simplicity is deceptive. And unless you break free from that deception, you cannot write an excellent answer based on Untouchable. He's admired for his novels and short stories that reached out to every Indian. He wrote in a style that every Indian of that time can understand. Anybody who can read English can understand, because his language is so Indian and his sensibility is so Indian. And that is why it's a classic of modern Indian English literature. Like Eugene O'Neill in the early 20th century wrote about African Americans and ordinary people of America in their idiom, as you have seen in Emperor Jones. As Chinua Achebe wrote about Africa in a style that all Africans will understand, using their idioms and phrases and sensibilities in novels like Things Fall Apart. Like that, Anand also, like Toni Morrison, established the foundations of African American literature by bringing in African American sensibility and language and idioms into novels like The Bluest Eye. So again, all these are, the the building blocks of post-colonial literature. And all these works that I mentioned are similar because they emulate the native idiom and the native culture, the lived realities of the people, the ordinary people. So that way, your syllabus brings together a lot of these important works. His works are noted for their perceptive insight into the lives of the oppressed. It is easy to depict the lives of the oppressed, but to get into Baka's mind, or the untouchable protagonist's mind, and talk about the reality from his perspective, that is entirely different. And he analyzes their impoverishment, exploitation, and misfortune, that thereby laying the foundations of not only Indian English literature but also Dalit literature. When you write about Untouchable, you should emulate Sharan Kumar Limbale's Towards the Dalit Poetics, because you should bring in ideas from there, because you cannot, like Sharan Kumar Limbale explicitly stated, Anand shows in his writing that you cannot judge a Dalit writer's book or a Dalit story, the story of an untouchable, from the with the yardsticks that you use to measure mainstream literature. The paradigms or the standards of mainstream literature cannot be applied to stories about Dalits or Dalit literature, which is why in the first many slides of my presentation, I have not quoted very much from the book, because the language is many times unspeakably vulgar. As you know, in India, in North India, they will use their own Hindi swear words. And in South India, we have our own swear words. And the lower class people, or the untouchables, were always addressed with a mix of these very bad swear words. And, even a father speaking to his son, how Laka speaks to Baka, or anybody else speaks to Baka, is deeply suffused with, deeply drenched with these bad language and very, immodest words. So that shows a sensibility. In all Dalit literature, you can see the same shocking language used, full of explicit bad language, expletives. That is because you cannot judge the Dalit morality or Dalit decency in terms of mainstream decency. So it is a whole new way of communication. It is a whole new way of experiencing life. It's a whole new kind of sensibility. So all that is very deeply dealt with, very poignantly dealt with in this novel, that you will get a glimpse of all that only if you read the novel. Anand became known for his protest novel Untouchable, followed by Coolie and Two Leaves and a Bud. All these are about very low class, low caste people who are also inhabiting the lower classes of the society. His autobiography, there are 4 parts that he has written in the 7-part autobiography called Seven Summers. And Morning Phase won Sahitya Academy Award in 1971. Sahitya Academy should never be written with this H. Right. Then Anand's greatest contribution as a novelist is the assimilation of the best of Indian and Western techniques in his novels. He is using a mix of Indian techniques with Western techniques, and is the first successful Indian novelist to use stream of consciousness technique. This novel, Untouchable, is not very easy to read, because many times we are going deep. Instead of just telling the story, we are going deep into Baka's thoughts and his mental processes and his reflections on nature and the past. And he emerges as a very intelligent and sensitive young man which is not what the society expects of an untouchable. And those sections of the novel are quite boring, where in a stream of consciousness manner, the deepest thoughts of Baka are being described. His other virtues as a novelist of Anand are the Indian setting, which is presented in a very realistic manner. Very, very, like in another novelist I have seen where Indian setting is so deeply evoked in a minute detail is Arundhati Roy, of which God of Small Things I have done a brilliant video series. Let me immodestly tell you. These are the best videos you will get in the internet ever, I can proudly say. If you have not watched God of Small Things video series in Udemy, you should definitely watch it, because it will change your perception about the novel and about a lot of things. I have done so much work on it. So please watch it if you have not watched already. The way she brings out culture and people and the setting is, I'm speechless. I don't know how to explain. Like that, Anand also just brings alive in front of us that Indian setting in all its variety, in all its dirt and ugliness and pettiness and beauty and brilliance all together. And the sense of humanism that came across in almost all his novels. It is like a cleansing of your mind. It's such a beautiful depiction of human beings in their multitudinous aspects that you find in his novels. We become aware of the deep humanism. It is like Shakespeare or Dickens also, that Anand presents as human beings. The major themes of Anand's novels are caste system, which he relentlessly, incessantly, tirelessly he attacks, the freedom movement, which is always the backdrop of most of his novels, the conflict between tradition and modernity, the exploitation of the poor, and the position of women in Hindu society. All that he is very profoundly aware of, and it shows in his writing. Like I told you, in the case of answers, even if you don't write everything, the way you write will show what you are. It is very easy to understand for an examiner whether this person has mugged up, whether this person has read the book or not, whether this person has really deeply enjoyed the book and passionately understood the book and then is writing the answer. Even if you write only 5 sentences, if you have deeply understood the novel, it will be, it is clear from the answer that you write. Like that, Anand, even if he is not expounding on all these things in great detail, for example, he never wrote one essay on women. Instead, he just depicted a few women characters. But the way in which he depicted them shows his deep concern and awareness of the position of women in a Hindu society, his respect for them, and his understanding of women as equal to men. And also the pathetic attempt to attain glory by women. How deeply unequal women are in Indian society, in Hindu society. So Anand is actually giving a very poignant and powerful criticism of the Hindu society in this novel. And he is a novelist of character and social reality. What is most important in Anand? It is definitely character. How these characters emerge as alive people in front of you because of their thinking, because of their minute details of their response to life. And his plots are very well made plots with a clear beginning, a suspense ridden middle. There is a lot of anxiety that he generates, adventurous, suspenseful, elements that he puts into his novels, and also a powerful end. Anand's characters are real and authentic. His major characters fall into 2 categories: the sufferers of social injustice, like the protagonists of Untouchable, Coolie and 2 Leaves and a Bud, and so sufferers of social injustice and exploitation, and upholders of unjust social order. Innumerable novels of our Anand present such characters. Not only Baka, Munnu, and Gangu in Two Leaves and a Bud, but also Chandran or Chandu in Barbers Trade Union, and so on and so forth. We have many characters who are upholders of unjust social order. They are rebels. On the other hand, they are rebelling against the hypocrites, the priests, the landlords, the money lenders, the evil, oppressors of upper caste sections of the society. Women characters are presented as weak and defenseless mostly, but there is a subtle rebellion in them also. For example, in Untouchable, Sohini is a brilliant character. She has a character. That is what it is. Sohini has a character. She is not just a colorless woman. She has her stand, even if she is weak, she has her ways of doing things, and she has her stand in all the things that happen. So has Gulabo. Gulabo is a very funny and evil woman, actually. She is attacking Sohini very viciously, and she is not a good character, but even then she has a character. And they are all equally powerfully drawn as the male protagonists. And then another great contribution of Anand is that he made common people, or the people of lower class, his heroes and began to write about them. Anand, always wrote about the underprivileged people, the common people, the people of the lower classes. And like Ada Miller in Death of a Salesman, or Eugene O'Neill in Emperor Jones, he's making fun of heroism, and he's showing that the common man is the hero. The common man is the hero. There are no great heroes. Who is the hero? It is the common man with all their failures and shortcomings. Anand uses satire and humor. The novel is replete with humor. There are so many brilliant moments of humor in Untouchable, and his language has a fine flavor of Indian English, as I told you, the Punjabi and Hindi idioms. And he freely makes use of English translations of Indian abusive expressions. Instead of when his father keeps on calling him mother chod, or words like that in Hindi, what we read in the novel is illegally begotten, and explanations of those words in English like that. So that is a very bold thing to do in the 21st century. Obviously, to say these words or write these words in a novel means nothing. It is everywhere in the movies, and nobody has any problem with it anymore. But in the 1930s, it was a very bold thing to do, to write like that. And also not only abuse language, but also the subtle sexuality of his characters, the way he depicts sex in his novels without any abashment or any shyness. That is also brilliant. That is also very modern. The use of overstatement, unjustified use of chance and coincidence are some of his limitations. Sometimes he overstates and overstates things, and he uses chance and coincidence too much. In this regard, M.K. Naik, who is a very major critic of Indian English literature and historian of Indian English, commented, his missionary zeal makes him indulge in direct statements and overstatement, as is done in the case of Untouchable through the lips of the poet Iqbal Nath Sarshar. Iqbal Nath is talking about India, but it is too plain. There is nothing, philosophically suggested there. Everything is stated too plainly. That is why Anand falls short of greatness a little bit. And we can also find a great deal of maturity in his writing. Here is a list of his works quickly. Untouchable, Coolie, Two Leaves and a Bud, The Village Across the Black Waters, The Sword and the Sickle, The Big Heart. Because you don't know the nature of the questions or the pattern of the questions, don't take anything for granted. There could be a set of questions that are to be answered in one sentence or something like that. You never know. So always note these minor details, what you think are minor details. Do not think just knowing the text will save you, because ultimately any exam like this is not to help you pass. It is to eliminate you. It is not to help you pass. They don't want you to pass. They are your enemies. They don't want you to pass. And it is because I know that they don't want you to pass that I don't take any chances. That is why I have dealt with many of these novels in so much detail, because at least from those novels, if you get some questions, you will be able to stand up against them. So do not think that other works of Anand, etc., or chronological details, or things like that are unimportant. There could be some questions like that also. In the previous PSC exam, there were very, very short answers that they expected you to write, one sentence and all. So objective type questions are very important. If you get, there are many quizzes I have uploaded in Udemy. Why? Because objective type questions help you to write very short answers and also to pack your descriptive answers with points. Otherwise, your answers will look very lean. You will write conventional answers. Conventional answers will get conventional marks, but you want exceptional marks. When everybody gets 8, you need 8.5 out of 10, right? Otherwise, how will you come top in the rank list? So study in these days as many objective type questions as possible, because all those will go into your descriptive answers. This is my strategy. If you want, you follow it. Otherwise, you do what you want. I don't care. I have taught like this and people have learned like this, and my strategies always were proven right at the end, especially in descriptive answers. I am better in coaching for descriptive exams than objective exams. It is very clear from the history of my teaching. That is why I'm sharing these things with you. The awards that he won are also important. And now coming to the novel about Untouchable. Mulk Raj Anand's literary career was the result of a family tragedy. This is an information that we get from Wikipedia, but it is good that you know it, because you never know. For example, if they ask a question bordering on autobiographical elements, then you can put in such details. Some aunt of his committed suicide, it seems, because she shared a meal with a Muslim and she was excommunicated by her family. So that is why he started writing, and he was pained by this incident. And it was Gandhi who asked him to write something about untouchables. At that time, he met Gandhi and was influenced by him. The first novel, Untouchable, was published in 1935, and it is a chilling expose of the lives of India's untouchable people. It was Mahatma Gandhi who asked him in 1930 to write a pamphlet on untouchability. What he asked him to write was a pamphlet, and what he wrote was a novel. Remember, the examiner is not going to read all your answers in detail. He doesn't have any problem with his mind to kill himself reading your answers, because there are so many people writing answers on the same book. You know how people are, examiners. They will want to finish their job quickly and do other things. So fill your answers with keywords, keywords. And the moment he looks at your answer, he should see all these keywords. All your big academic words should not jut out. The points should jut out. Okay. So Mahatma Gandhi, pamphlet, all these could be keywords. I'm just saying, this is why I'm giving you the PowerPoint. You should note down the keywords and study the keywords. In every answer, you write all these important keywords, because the moment examiner, he or she looks at your answer, he will so he or she will see so many keywords, and tuck, marks will come. It is better that he or she doesn't read your answer. Before that, the mark should come, because if they read, they will note your faulty sentence constructions and grammar mistakes and things, spelling mistakes, which I see a lot in the few answers that you write and give. Anyway, Untouchable. So keywords, that is the point that I was telling you. Untouchable captures the vernacular inventiveness of the Punjabi and Hindi idiom in English, and it won Anand the reputation as India's Charles Dickens. The novel's introduction was written by his friend E.M. Foster, as you know. The edition that I read had an introduction by Ramachandra Guha. Ramachandra Guha, the famous historian. And so I have not dealt with in detail about E.M. Foster's introduction. These days in the editions, we don't even see it. Anyway, Foster writes, avoiding rhetoric and circumlocution, it has gone straight to the heart of its subject and purified it. The book was inspired, as I told you, by his aunt's experience. The plot of the novel revolves around the arguments for eradicating the caste system. Caste system is to be eradicated. It is to be wiped out. It is obsolete. That is the main argument. It depicts one day in the life of Baka. Needless to say, he might have got inspired by Ulysses of James Joyce and Mrs. Dalloway of Virginia Woolf, because those modernist novels that came just before Untouchable also depicts one day in the life of the protagonist. And he presents Baka, a young sweeper of the Bhangi caste, and he's an untouchable. His work is cleaning latrines. In those days, without flush toilets, people did not flush their toilets, and in the morning, the Bhangis had to go and clean up their toilets and take out the human waste and get it burned, etc. So it's a very uncouth work, a very dirty work that Baka is used to doing, but he doesn't like it. The novel is his, and that is why that is related to this latrine thing, is related to other things in Indian history. How Mahatma Gandhi, Ramachandra Guha has written about it in the introduction, how Mahatma Gandhi advocated cleaning latrines as one of the very major aspects of the eradication of the caste system. The project against caste that he embarked on involved cleaning latrines. Everybody should clean their own latrines. Upper caste people should also clean their own latrines. We should not depend on untouchables to do it. That was his teaching. And also today, the Congress, when the Congress party was ruling in recent times, Jairam Ramesh, wasn't it? The minister who first said that latrines should be our focus, because India is unclean and majority of people do not have access to latrines. He was actually following the tradition of Mahatma Gandhi, and later the BJP government also took it up and did the campaign called Swachh Bharat. So you can mention some of these in passing, because these are all integrally connected to the history of India, independent India. And it throws light on all these instances related to latrines, throw light on the plight of the lower caste and lower class people of India even today. So latrines and cleaning latrines are related to caste and class. Books like Untouchable, the novel is historical in the sense that it documents the dehumanization. So cleaning latrines, even though Mahatma Gandhi said there is nothing wrong with it, everybody should clean their own latrines, it was used as a means of dehumanizing the lower caste people and the systemic oppression prevalent in Indian society as a result of the practice of untouchability. There is a very painful scene in the beginning when he's talking about Anand is talking about Baka cleaning the latrines, and very small pieces of the human waste settled on his clothes. He was wearing Western clothes that he bought from a pawn shop for the very little money that he had, and he was very proudly wearing it as uniform, because these clothes represented his desire for a better identity, and the pieces of human waste settle on his dress. When you read the novel, you read it with great pain in your heart, and also it is an indication of the discrimination against the lower castes. The appearance of Mahatma Gandhi towards the end of the novel explicitly places the book in a distinctive historical context. Somebody rang the bell here. Let me go and see who it is. Just read this slide meanwhile. Just 1 minute. Yeah, sorry for the interruption. The social condition of the untouchables in India was worst by 1930 when Untouchable was published in 1933. It was a very bad time in India for the untouchables. The upper caste Hindus treated them extremely badly. The untouchables were not allowed to go to any school, and they were denied the right of education. They were also not permitted to enter any temple for fear that the atmosphere of the temple would be polluted. All these are pertaining to the novel. The untouchables were always kept at a distance by the upper caste Hindus, and they were asked to announce their arrival, and touching them would defile the upper caste Hindus, etc. The untouchables had to live outside the town, like Hester Prynne had to live outside Boston, and could live only on the leftover food from the plates of the caste Hindus. Remember, also many other novels like Akarmashi, The Outcast, or Jutan by Om Prakash Valmiki, very important texts of Dalit literature. You should definitely mention all this because these were inspired by Anand and his depiction of the upper caste also. Without writing about the whole tradition of Dalit writing in India, you cannot write about Untouchable. So Jutan, the word that forms the title of Om Prakash Valmiki's autobiography, means untouchable. Leftover. Jutan is leftover. They must not climb up the caste. They must not climb the steps of a house or a temple, but should beg from a distance. The caste Hindus sprinkled water on the things touched by the untouchables, and they were thrown everything. They were not given food or anything by putting it in their hands. They were thrown. All these are relevant in understanding the story. The untouchables were not allowed to take water from wells. They could not receive. They could receive water from caste Hindus only as a favor. Sohini goes and sits along with the other untouchable women at the well, waiting for somebody to come and draw water for them. Thus, the social condition of the untouchables was worse than that of animals. The writer's views and mindset condition his work. Any writer is conditioned by his mindset. Mulk Raj Anand is no exception. His domestic background, his social milieu, his education, his reading, connections with people. So what is Anand, the writer, the person, is what has made Anand the novelist. So the person and the relationship between the person and the novel is very relevant in Untouchable. And incidentally, that is also a very important understanding that we have when we read and study Dalit literature. Even though Anand is not a Dalit, he is writing like a Dalit writer, and from their perspective, and not an outsider's perspective. And there is no distinction between the man and the work in writing in Dalit literature, in writing of the Dalits. Whereas in privileged people's cases, in mainstream literature, T.S. Eliot famously, as you know, argued that the more the separation between the man who feels and the man who writes, the better the literary work becomes. That is mainstream. And Anand is writing entirely against it. The lesser, there can be no separation between the man and the work in Dalit literature and literature of the underprivileged people, because the man is what the text is. There is no education, there is no outside knowledge that the man can depend on when he writes, in the case of Dalit writers. Anand has seen how the upper class sections of the society give inhuman and insulting treatment to the lower and backward classes. All these cast a spell on Mulk Raj Anand, the man. And the novel pictures the period around 1930-40. At this time, untouchability was very severe. The novel was written over a long weekend in 1930. It is very famous that it was written in a couple of days. Mulk Raj Anand tells us that it poured out like hot lava. He himself said that it poured out like hot lava from the volcano of his imagination. There is a very famous article that he wrote on the genesis of Untouchable, a note, where he talks about how he wrote this novel. One day I read an article in Young India by Mahatma Gandhi describing how he met Uka. That is a character in the novel also. In Untouchable also, Mahatma Gandhi speaks about Uka at the end when Mahatma Gandhi gives a speech. Uka is a sweeper boy And finding him with torn cloths and hungry, he took him into the ashram. I decided to go and see the old man. That is how he went and saw Mahatma Gandhi. In 1930, Mahatma Gandhi asked him to write a pamphlet on untouchability. Instead of a pamphlet, Anand wrote this novel. And he went to Sabarmati Ashram and met Gandhiji. It is a very beautiful ashram. I have been there. Very quiet and beautiful, and now defiled by all the tourists. But Gandhi used to live there, and it was an expression. The ashram was an expression of the philosophy of Gandhi, as you might know. And Anand had a life transforming experience when he met Gandhi there. He stayed at the ashram and revised the novel, and Gandhi accepted it. He went to London in search of a publisher. One after another, 19 publishers rejected his novel. 19 is a key word. Finally, a small publisher, Wishart Books Limited, published it in 1935 with a defensive preface written by E.M. Forster. So that is, it is, even though E.M. Forster is his friend, you know, how this is also a thing that you can apply theory on. How you need an Englishman's preface in order to sell Indian experience or write about Indian experience. It is the Englishman's preface that is invariably defensive that gives you the right to write. It is like E.M. Forster is validating the right to write. And some Derridian theory, Derrida's Circumfession is a book that I am reminded in this regard, where the relationship between the author and the commentator is described, and in a very subversive manner. So how Anand's writing is related to the preface written by E.M. Forster. That's a very important theoretical issue, and it is related to Anand's subservient or subordinate position as an Indian. Now, introducing the characters. Baka is the protagonist. Laka is his father, the Jamadar of the sweepers, the head of the sweepers. Raka is his younger brother who's always playing and not ready to work. Sohini is Baka's younger sister, who is molested by a priest. Chota is one of Baka's best friends. He is a leather worker's son. Chota is a leather worker's son. Ramcharan is a washerman's son. In the caste hierarchy, washerman comes first, then leather worker, then last of all is the sweepers. Even among the untouchables, Baka and his family are the lowest. And Ramcharan, in his character also, he's a little above Baka, even though they're all friends. Ramcharan's sister gets married in the novel that day, and Baka used to like Ramcharan's sister a lot, even though she's a very small, puny girl. You know, due to malnourishment, probably because of lack of food, Ramcharan's sister is looking very small and weak. And Gulabo is his mother, Ramcharan's mother, a washerwoman who abuses Sohini. Abusing one another is a very common thing in that society. Waziro is a weaver's wife, and she's a Muslim, and she prevents Gulabo from hitting Sohini. The Muslims in the novel, as well as in that society, did not have caste system, and they were like the bridge. They dealt with the upper caste people also, as well as the lower caste people, without any untouchability. Havildar Charat Singh is one of Baka's heroes. Not only Baka's, in that society, he was a hockey player, famous hockey player, and Baka admires him, and this man gives him a hockey stick. Pandit Kalinath is a hypocritical priest in this fictional town where they are all living. Bulasha, that is the name of the town. He has his eye on Sohini, and he asks Sohini to come and clean the courtyard of his house. And then he tries to molest her. But Sohini, like Pamela, even though she's a servant girl, Pamela is the next novel I'm teaching you tomorrow. Like Pamela, even though she's a servant girl and she is probably not very sure of, her moral position, even then she has self-respect. Sohini is a woman with self-respect, and Pamela is also a woman with self-respect. That makes them rebellious women. And it is not like Kalinath raped Sohini and destroyed her or anything. He just touched her, and he just started to molest her. But even that for Sohini is a very big blot on her self-respect and identity. That is brilliant. It is very contemporary for an educated upper caste or metropolitan women, for women of later times. Even a look is molestation. That is not wrong. A perverse look is molestation. But in those days, in that society, women were taught it is okay if upper caste men molest you. If you sleep with upper caste men also, it is okay. You see that from Akarmashi, etc. by Sharan Kumar Limbale. The lower caste women were denied self-respect. They were denied any morality. They were supposed to be mistresses of the upper caste. But our Sohini is a woman with self-respect. That's a very brilliant character that Anand has made in this novel. Hakim Bhagwan Das is a man who never appears in the novel. Lakha remembers him as a local doctor who saved Baka's life when he was a small child. In the novel, you see Lakha, the father, as abusing Baka all the time. And only in this memory, you see that the father used to love his son. Again, I'm reminded of Bluest Eye. Kali in Bluest Eye is like Lakha in Untouchable. It is not that Kali is a very bad father and he is lustful and he is very evil because he raped his daughter. The rape and the evil in Kali is a result of his downtrodden nature. It's a result of his being an underdog in the society. And also it is a result of the psychological, trauma that he has undergone because of social discrimination and ostracization. Kali is a very deeply drawn character in that sense. Toni Morrison shows that lower caste men will rape, probably. They will be abusive. They will not act like upper caste men because they undergo so much oppression and discrimination, and it is, they come from so much squalor that it is impossible to judge them with the yardsticks of upper class morality. This happened in the case of Nirbhaya also in India. When the documentary was made about Nirbhaya's rapists, that minor lower caste boy who has come from such squalor and misery, he is one of the rapists. And the story of that boy was told, as well as the evil lawyer who was seen to speak in very abusive manner about women and morality. The whole of upper caste India or upper class India or middle class India rose in protest against that documentary. And, we had a fiery rebellion in our minds rising against these people. But that documentary also showed us that this is the normal reality of thousands and millions of very low class, lower caste people in India. Not because they are lower caste, but because they are considered as the very objectionable underdogs in the society. The kind of treatment the upper caste people give them, the kind of discrimination and squalor they have to deal with in their daily lives. Every day they see abuse and rape and killing, and they become numb in their heart. They don't have our kind of understanding of decency or morality because they were denied education, they were denied access to better lifestyles. Then how can you expect them to behave in any better way? So Frantz Fanon also said the colonized people will be violent because that is what is meted out to them. There is a violence in the upper caste treatment of the lower castes. That is what makes the lower caste people violent. It is not that they are inherently violent because they are lower caste. Did you understand? That is not spelled out in Untouchable, but Untouchable forms a part of that tradition of understanding subalternity and lower caste culture and psychology, where Frantz Fanon is important, where the Nirbhaya rapists and the documentary about them is important, where so many Dalit literary works are important. So Lakha is a very abusive father and Baka hates him. Baka, always is complaining in his mind against Lakha. But when he actually meets Lakha, you see there is some connection. He is giving Lakha food and he is treating Lakha respectfully. And even though Lakha is abusive, there are some moments of tenderness that emerge in his conversations with his son. And this memory is a very, very important, from a psychological, psychoanalytic perspective. This memory that he had of that time when he was a better father, when he took his small child Baka, who was very ill, to a local doctor and fought with that doctor. He had to literally fight to get attention from the doctor. That is a very tender moment in the novel, which is very subtle. And that is very, very important. Colonel Hutchinson is the chief of the local Salvation Army, and Colonel Hutchinson talks to Baka about Christianity and conversion. And his wife, Mary Hutchinson, is a very rude and irreligious woman who shows the other side of Christianity. They are both white people. Another character is Mahatma Gandhi himself, portrayed as a real life person. And while Baka waits to meet Mahatma Gandhi and hear his lecture speech, he listens to two people, one Muslim lawyer called R.N. Bashir and a poet called Iqbal Nath Sarshar, who are debating. R.N. Bashir is critical of Gandhi and he talks against Gandhi from among the audience. And Iqbal Nath Sarshar gives a long, passionate speech, which is kind of simplistic and very overstated, but he gives that speech in support of Gandhi and India's need for Gandhi. So these are the important characters. The opening of Untouchable. The outcast colony was a group of mud-walled houses that clustered together in 2 rows under the shadow both of the town and the cantonment. Many Dalit novels also present the outcast colony to start with. Many of the Dalit novels and autobiographies you will see start with a description of the colony, which is liminal, in between. It is always outside the town. In the town, all the main people, the educated people, the rich people will live, and these people are on the outskirts. They are like the boundary. That liminal positioning, spatial positioning of the outcast colony is very important. Spatial theories can be applied to Untouchable. The theory of space in Untouchable. Theories of space in Untouchable is a very important aspect. Please make a note of that and introduce some points related to that in your answers. There lived the scavengers. They are not even treated like human beings. They are called scavengers, the leather workers, the washermen, the barbers, the water carriers. Even though these are all professions in English, these are caste names in India. In India, we define the caste by the professions, and the grass cutters and other outcasts from Hindu society. They are all Hindus, but in the novel, we'll understand that Hindu is not one thing. Many outcast children and outcast people don't understand Hindu religion. They don't know about Hindu gods. They don't know the mythological stories. Baka has heard about Ram and he has seen his father and other people talking about Ram and praying and all that. But the way they pray, their relationship to religion is completely different from the relationship of the upper caste people to religion. And they don't understand religion. When Colonel Hutchinson tries to convert Baka to Christianity, Baka says, I don't know, I don't want to convert to Christianity. I don't understand anything about it. Who is Yeshu? Who is Jesus Christ? He's asking. And he thinks, okay, Ram, at least I've heard. But what is the use of religion? Does religion help us in any way? He doesn't even know that. That kind of an ignorance and inaccessibility is there for these lower caste people and untouchables related to religion. So when you say Hindu, in the Untouchable, Hindu is a very plural and variegated concept. It is not one monolithic concept like today's Hindus and upholders of Hindu religion, who try to make it out. It is not one thing. Hindu is not an all-encompassing one concept where everybody is praying to the same gods in the same way. But people have innumerably different kinds of relationships to the society and to the God and to the culture and religion. That is what this novel Untouchable shows from the beginning itself. Baka lives in a house made of mud and it has only one room. He lives with his father Laka, Raka, and his sister Soini. Laka works as a sweeper and he's getting old and he's lazy and he wants Laka, his 18-year-old son, to go and work instead. He is the leader of the Jamadar of the sweepers in the town, and he sometimes pretends to be ill so that he can get away from work. So what Laka does being a leader is to sweep the streets, which is an easier work. And the lower sweepers below him have to go and sweep the latrines. So in that morning, Baka, the protagonist, is sweeping the latrines and coming home when Laka, his father, sends him to sweep the streets also. The town they live in is called Bulasha, a fictional Indian town. It can be any Indian town. And Baka is any Dalit Indian. And their community of outcasts restricted to a colony near the latrines. All these people live near the latrines. Oh, where is it? Outcasts. Yeah. All these people live near the latrines because it is easier to clean the latrines by living near them. So, sometimes in Dalit literature, the absolute stench and the dirt and the mud in which they live are described in detail. But in Mulk Raj Anand, it is not there so much, but it is understandable that they are living in very dirty, very smelly, very, infested, virus, bacteria infested surroundings. Although set in a backward family, it's a typical family one can find in India. There is a son who is always dreaming, a careless father with no one to remind him of his duties because the mother is dead, a hard-working daughter, and a burdensome life. The life of middle-class families are similar. Lower middle-class families, where not upper middle class, lower middle class families are similar, where there is no aim or meaning to life, and it is lived as life is given to live, especially in slums of Mumbai, etc. Hard working class people's lives. Middle class in India is the working class. Baka always thinks of his friends and is almost obsessed with the English way of living. The beginning of the novel introduces us to Baka's obsession with English culture and English way of dressing. From the beginning, we see that he is trying to sleep more. He is not wearing Indian clothes and covering himself with a quilt. And he's feeling very cold because he has worn Western clothes, and he is covering himself with a Western blanket, which is very thin. And his father Laka is coming and waking him up very rudely, using very bad language. And he is trying to sleep more because he is lazy and he doesn't want to go and clean the latrines. But once he starts to clean the latrines, he is conscious of his duty, and he is very efficient in his work also. And he always wants to be like the Tommies or the Englishmen. Laka constantly abuses his son for having such an interest in Englishmen. Even though Laka respects them, he thinks that Baka can never be like an Englishman. He's obsessed with the habits and dress of the British, and with the little money that he has bought some second-hand clothes. And this obsession often leads him to reject his own country's customs and clothes in favor of those of the Tommies or the British. The rejection of his Indian heritage is one source of the discord between Baka and his father. But that is also a very significant point that we should discuss, because the lack of connection that he feels with Indians is because of the very lower class unfair status that Indians have given Baka and his people and the Bangis in our society. They don't belong. They don't feel as if they belong to India. It is like a fourth world. As we know, we use the word fourth world to deal with the untouchables and the very subaltern people. It is like a fourth nation. It is like a nation within this nation, the untouchables, because they are so separate from the other Indians. As Baka reminisces on several things while lying in bed, his father abuses him for not going to clean the latrines. Laka is if in a middle class society of today, if the father calls that such names even once, we will be so unforgiving to the father. In countries like Sweden, let alone abusing like this, even if you say the slightest angry word to your children, you will be imprisoned. So in a world like that, Baka and Laka are a family like this. Laka is lazy in the morning. Baka is lazy in the morning, and his father Laka is also lazy. He just rudely wakes up Baka, sends him to clean the latrines, and again sleeps. He resents Baka's obsession with the English, and he wants Baka to be satisfied with the lot of the untouchables and sweepers. Oh, hey, you Bakia, you son of a pig, like that. So many, a whole string of abuses he unleashes on his son. This is his wake up call every day. I'm reminded of how Amanda wakes up her children in a very pretentious manner because she is trying to be genteel and upper class, whereas these people are very lower class. He does not care. Baka doesn't care. He again shuts his eyes and sleeps. And he thinks of his mother who died recently. His mother used to be very loving. She used to, when he woke up in the morning, she used to give him, pay attention. This is very interesting. She used to give him a very hot mixture of tea leaves, water, milk, and sugar. He is not calling it tea. Whereas we would call it tea. They don't know how to make tea. They don't have enough ingredients. They will just mix together all these things into some watery liquid. And that is what he used to drink with great relish. Baka used to drink. And he believes that if his mother was there, things would have been better. He continuously ignores his father's words. And he finds that Laka, his father, has grown lazy more and more since his mother died. And because he says it was the day after his mother died, the second day, the first day after his mother died, that is when he began to hear these abuses. And Baka is now bearing the brunt of the sweeping work. He has to do all the work. As Baka hears then he goes to clean the latrines. All the people who come to use the latrines are abusing Baka. Okay, Bakia, come and clean. No latrine is clean. Everybody is complaining and scolding Baka. And when Baka sees Charat Singh sees Baka wearing these Western clothes, he feels happy. Charat Singh thinks, wow, here is a very clean untouchable. And he says casually, okay, come and meet me. I'll give you a hockey stick. That makes Baka very happy. And he idolizes Charat Singh and hockey because that represents to him a better life, a better youth, and a better way to belong to the society. And Charat Singh is a great hockey player, and Baka feels really happy about the promise. A soft smile lingered on his lips, the smile of a slave overjoyed at the condescension of his master, more akin to pride than to happiness. Oh my God, I am treated like a human being. He has condescended to speak to me and to give me something. That kind of a pride Baka feels. Baka resumes his work and collects the refuse. He collects it on straw. All the human waste is put on straw, and all this straw and waste together is put into a furnace with a chimney, and it is burned. The very bad smell must be coming out from the chimney, and that is where they are living. It is near his house. And there, Laka at home, Laka is still sleeping, and there is no water to drink. He's very thirsty, and Sohini goes to fetch water. And there's a very important scene where Sohini is described very sensuously. She has a full body, even though she's very lean. And Baka sits looking at her and he was proud of her in a manner not quite like a brother being proud of his sister. That is what Mulk Raj Anand says, the narrator says. He looked at her and it was not quite as a brother looking at his sister. That is a very bold thing to say, but that is very universal and human. Baka is emerging as just a teenager, and a very frustrated teenager for that. When Kali raped his daughter, here Baka is looking at his sister with some emotion bordering on lust. And later on also, there is a suggestion of incest, which is not about Baka being evil, or it is all about the mainstream society's hypocrisy. It is about the moral pretensions of the mainstream society. Baka's life and characterization is more truthful. Baka goes to fetch water, and she bears the brunt of the family's frustrations. She reaches the well with a pitcher. A lot of outcast women were sitting there. I'm reminded of Shiv K. Kumar's Indian Women, where lower caste women have to come and sit and wait for water for a long time. And no outcast was allowed to directly draw water, and upper caste people could only come and give them water. So she is waiting, and at that time, um, Gulabo starts to abuse her. Ramcharan's mother, the washerwoman, Gulabo, she has a superiority complex, and and also her youth, and the affair that she had in her youth, and how that man in his middle age is still paying her attention. Things like that, minor details of these people's lives are being presented. And all that is very common to Indian life, and it is presented with great realism. She's jealous of Sohini and her youth, and she begins to abuse Sohini, calling her a bitch, a prostitute, and derogatory names. It is terrible how easily these lower caste men and women are called all these names. And tomorrow I will be talking about how easily Pamela, being a servant woman, is continuously called a slut and harlot and very bad words by her master, whom she secretly loves. So what is this morality and decency? That's all a sham. However, Gulabo, even though Sohini tells her, you shouldn't abuse me like this, she doesn't get affected. She only sits there laughing, and she even slightly talks back to Gulabo, and Gulabo tries to hit Sohini, and then Waziro tries to stop her. All that happens, which is very common in Indian villages. And Sohini gets some water. You know how the Pandit of the local temple called Kalinath, he comes there, and he eyes Sohini with lust. And all the women say, Guruji, please give us water, please give us water. And he said, oh, Lakha's daughter, you come here. And he gives water only to Sohini. And he tells Sohini, why don't you come and sweep my courtyard near the temple, the courtyard of my house. And he gives this favor for Sohini for sexual reasons. And it is more or less like how Mr. B keeps giving favors to Pamela. And she accepts his offer and returns home. And this is again a scene where class diversification and caste diversification are visible, spatially and socially. And Sohini goes back home, and Laka has been yelling because he is hungry. He said, you didn't give me tea or bread. And so she quickly goes inside and starts making some tea, and gives him some leftover bread also. And Baka has to now go and sweep the streets because Laka is acting as if he's ill. Laka says, I have a pain in my side, so go and sweep the streets. He's only pretending. And all these scenes are very poignant treatments of class system. Baka, while I'm not reading everything because we don't have time. This is a very deep novel because of all the other connections and all the minute details. I have to show you the style. So we don't have time. I will just go through. If it had been a video, I would have taught it over like 4 hours or 5. What was I saying? Yeah. He goes and meets his friends. Baka goes and meets his friends Ramcharan and Chota. They are also of the upper caste, lower caste, outer caste. Outcast, untouchables they are. But as I told you, Ramcharan is superior among them. Chota is next, and last is our Baka. Baka is made fun of by them because he is too much obsessed with the English. And Ramcharan tells them that his sister is going to be married that day. Baka is a bit sad because he had some soft feelings for Ramcharan's sister. And he's feeling very dutiful, and he does not go along with his friends to play. They just want to spend time together and have some fun. But Baka is not ready. Baka now goes to the town because he has to sweep. And there he meets while he goes on the way, he meets the Ramcharan and our Chota are also there with him. Two sons of an upper caste man, Bura Babu, they're his sons he meets. These are very small children, 12-year and 8-year-old children, very small children. And they say, we will bring hockey stick, let us play hockey. The Chota boy, the small boy, is not even old enough to play, but they say, okay, let us play. And there, Baka asks the elder boy, will you teach me English? And he offers him money. The elder boy is ready to teach for money. And thus Ramcharan and Chota make fun of Baka because, oh, now you're going to be master. You have Englishman's clothes and now you're going to learn English and speak English. And with that, Baka leaves them and moves on towards the city. Here is like in Anand, R.K. Narayan, you see a very poignant, realistic picture of the youth or the children in that town. The relationship between the children and how they get assimilated into their cultures, it's a very important element. Baka on the way buys a red lamp cigarette. This red lamp cigarette is mentioned several times in the beginning of the novel. And he forgot to buy matches. And he is not supposed to go and light a cigarette from the shop as usual, because even the shopkeeper is throwing him the cigarettes. And finally, there is a Musalman who helps him to light his cigarette, because other caste people, upper caste people don't help. And he walks through the town. At this time, his mind, the thoughts in his mind are depicted in a stream of consciousness style. He talks about the sights of the town and his own feelings and his own feeling of youthful desire to have some fun and to belong, and his hopes for the future and his complaints about the past. Everything gets mixed up in the stream of consciousness thoughts that he gets in the town as he walks through it. This is distinctly modernist, like Mrs. Dalloway walking through London, or like Leopold Bloom walking through Dublin. And there he gets attracted to some sweets. And he is afraid because his father always scolds him for buying these things, unnecessary things, and spending his money. He has 8 annas and he spends 4 annas on buying some jalebis. He asks the shopkeeper to give jalebi for 4 annas, and he clearly cheats Baka by weighing the scale incorrectly. He gets less for 8 annas. And then it is covered in a newspaper, and Baka walks in the town eating from the newspaper, and it is a wonderful feeling that he gets at that time. He feels happy for the fact that he has jalebi to munch while walking. There he is lost in thought, and he stands there observing the advertising boards, when suddenly he hears very abusive words being flung at him. It so happens that he has touched a high caste man. Baka was standing there lost in thought, and one high caste man probably came and bumped into him. Baka even doesn't realize what happened, and then he is scolding Baka for not announcing that he is lower caste. Because he has the sweeper's tools with him, it is easy to realize that he is a sweeper. Baka is not to blame, because it is because of the hurriedness of the high caste man that this happens. But he is bearing the wrath of the high caste man. Keep to the side of the road, you low caste vermin. He suddenly heard someone shouting at him. Why don't you call, you swine, and announce your approach? Do you know you have touched me and defiled me, you cock-eyed son of a bow-legged scorpion? Now I'll have to go and take a bath to purify myself. And it was a new dhoti and shirt I put on this morning, as if it is Baka's fault. And he is so angry. I'm also reminded of the clothes that Quentin Compson wears in Sound and the Fury before he goes out. Baka pleads his apology, but the man won't listen, and everybody is scolding Baka. Everybody has gathered around Baka, and they're all scolding. And his option of escaping is closed out, as he needs to touch someone if he has to escape the circle. They all insult Baka and falsely accuse him of previous mistakes. At that time, fortunately, a horse buggy with a travel merchant comes to the road, scattering the people around. Thus, Baka gets to escape from there. The high caste man stays despite many urges from the merchant and only leaves after giving a. And then suddenly, as Baka is leaving, his face rings with a slap. He doesn't realize what is happening. The high caste man slaps Baka. So he doesn't mind touching Baka to slap him. Look at the hypocrisy. The climax of the novel is that slap when the high caste person accidentally touches and then slaps Baka of the Bulasha town in the Bulasha town center. There is a very important text that I keep remembering in connection with Untouchable. That is our Eugene O'Neill's The Hairy Ape. Earlier, when I introduced the novel to you, I mentioned Hairy Ape. And in a very advanced level, many people have already written papers, research papers about Hairy Ape and Untouchable. The relationship between the two works is that in both these works, there is a lower caste man who is living a very pathetic life, who suddenly becomes aware of his caste. Caste consciousness is awakened in him because of one incident of insult. And he wants to take revenge in Hairy Ape. Yank is insulted by Mildred when she says, "Oh, brute, hairy brute," or something she says, and he feels insulted and he's aware of his lower caste status. And like that, Baka, an intelligent boy, becomes like an epiphany, because this is modernist, like an epiphany. This hard slap changes Baka forever. He becomes aware of his class and caste, and he becomes aware of the injustices of the society. Before that, he was feeling only, submissive to the upper caste men. But now he becomes very, very aware of conscious of his caste status. The climax of the novel is this moment when the high caste person accidentally touches him and then slaps him. This moment impacts all subsequent events and interactions in the novel. It stays forefront in Baka's mind for the rest of the book and influences many of his choices and behaviors. Many emotions flow from the furious and crying Baka. Baka cannot contain his feelings and he's crying because of indignation, anger, frustration, and horror. Baka decides to take revenge, like Yank also wants revenge when the travel merchant tries to console him. Baka gets up to leave when a shopkeeper reminds him about chanting. The Untouchables are supposed to chant, "Posh, posh, the sweeper is coming. Here comes the sweeper. Posh, posh," like that he has to chant. So this climax features two of Untouchable's key themes and motives. This awareness of the untouchable and the social and spatial ostracization of the untouchable, the injustice and hypocrisy of the upper caste man, these are all very important themes discussed in that one scene. The blame of the untouchable or the responsibility of the untouchable is a very important aspect. The upper caste man places the blame for the accidental touching wholly on Baka's shoulders. Like Salman Rushdie talked about shame, the untouchables can talk about blame, and guilt because of the responsibility that they have to not defile the upper caste people. He is first accusing Baka of touching him and then verbally abusing Baka for not announcing his presence. It is like Baka's very existence is unacceptable for the upper caste people. They need the untouchables to do all their work, but they shouldn't exist. They shouldn't live among them. Baka is also tasked with maintaining the healthy, unpolluting distance between him. Look at the spatial elements. And the angry mob gathered around to witness the drama, even though he wants to flee the scene. Posh, keep away. Posh, sweeper is coming. Posh, posh, sweeper coming. Posh, posh. Like that, he has to call out. This is how Baka announced his entry into polluted areas every morning so that people did not knock against him accidentally. Again, the responsibility, that's a very important term, of protecting the purity of the high caste people falls on the untouchable. Baka is confronted with many questions after this incident. He's suddenly awakening. His mind is awakening like Yang's in Hairy Ape. He could not understand the humility shown by him despite the arrogant behavior of the public. He realizes that he has lived such a an underdog's life. For him, for them, I am a sweeper, sweeper, untouchable, untouchable, untouchable. That is the word, untouchable. I am an untouchable. This is the these are the words that his mind is screaming. The repetition of the word untouchable in this quote helps to convey Baka's anguish and anger regarding the slap he receives from the high caste man. I'm sure that Mulk Raj Anand is inspired by a lot of these other novels and works, plays also that I'm talking about. Definitely modernists like Virginia Woolf and James Joyce and T.S. Eliot, as well as Eugene O'Neill, must have impacted on him greatly. After asking rhetorically why he is abused, he answers his own question by reaffirming his status as a sweeper, as an untouchable. You can read all this on your own later. It was a discord between person and circumstance by which a lion like him lay enmeshed in a net, while many a common criminal wore a Raja's crown. Baka is feeling like he is a good person. Baka is feeling like he is powerful because there is so much wonderful about him in his character, and he's feeling proud of himself. But it is like a lion enmeshed in a net. The narrator points out the unfairness and randomness of the caste system, in which someone like Baka, who is comparing himself to the Englishman, and he wants a good life and who has his hopes and dreams, he's enslaved, while worse men like him live like kings. Using the image of the lion in a simile about Baka is powerful, because it is like Pamela is the princess. In Pamela, why did Richardson take the name of a princess from Sydney's Arcadia? Because our Pamela in her rebellion is also like a princess. Like that, here, our Baka is like a lion. He has strength of character and pride in himself. And the imagery of a criminal wearing a Raja's crown brings to mind scoundrels like Pandit Kalinath, whom we will see is a very treacherous and hypocritical, worst kind of man. So after all this has happened, he finally walks and walks and walks and reaches the temple. And he has to sweep there. And the temple is supposed to be a very tranquil place where everything is beautiful and spiritual, right? He sees some worshippers approaching, and he is not supposed to stand there or climb the steps or anything. He is not supposed to defile the people, but he is curiously tempted to see what is happening inside, and he is interested in religion. That is a very, very important scene. Here is a Hindu who is standing at the steps of the temple. Doesn't have the right to even climb the steps. His God is there. He is supposed to be a Hindu. His God is there inside the temple, but he is standing at the gates of the temple, at the steps of the temple, without the right to go in. And even when he climbs the steps, he is abused and he is denied permission, and he is denied entry into the temple. What kind of a Hindu is he? What is this Hinduism? So indirectly, Mulk Raj Anand is tearing this culture apart that is hypocritical and deeply rooted in inequality. He does not understand who the gods are. He wonders who is Narayan, Shantadeva, Hari, etc. He has never even heard about all these gods that other people are worshipping. Curiosity increases within him he is actually in a quest for identity. When he climbs the steps of the temple, he is actually seeking himself. I am a Hindu, supposedly. What am I? What is this Hindu, and what is happening inside this Hindu temple? He is trying to find out. In that quest for identity that is happening throughout the day, he desires to know what is happening inside the temple. At first, he becomes discouraged because the temple is a very holy place to Hindus, and any unholy things in the temple would result in the closure of the temple. He is frightened. So he starts doing his work, and again he is interested. Suddenly, he hears the word polluted, polluted from inside the temple. And alarmingly, he thinks people are saying about him, and he lies in a prostrate position thinking, oh my God, I have polluted the temple. I am going to be beaten. I don't know what all thoughts came in his mind. And in a very frightened way, he lies down there and then only he realizes that it is not about him. Everybody is rushing to inside the temple, and Pandit Kalinath has come and is shouting, polluted, polluted. And then very slowly, Baka comes to realize what happens. Sohini, his sister, was sweeping the temple, and Kalinath is crying that Sohini polluted the temple. And then he goes up to Sohini, and then he understands that Sohini has been abused by the Pandit, and he screams, if only I let you know what this priest has done to pollute the temple. Like that, he gives a suggestion that Kalinath has done something to Sohini. With that, everybody just goes away. There is no more confusion, and he holds his sister's hand and goes out of the temple. Sohini explains to Baka, her brother, that Pandit Kalinath has tried to touch her. He held her breast, he says. And Baka is infuriated because it is also like incest. I'm suspicious that the novel that I mentioned, Sound and the Fury, has inspired our Mulk Raj Anand, because there also Quentin is very protective of his sister. There is an incestuous love that Quentin has for his sister Caddy. So I'm suspicious that probably because this novel, The Sound and the Fury, was published just before this. As our Mulk Raj Anand was writing the novel Untouchable, it was published. I don't know if he was able to read it or something. Probably he was, I don't know. Anyway, there is a very curious relationship between the brother and sister in Sound and the Fury and the brother and sister in Untouchable. Probably I'm wrong. Probably Anand did not read the novel, but it is possible, I suppose. But like in these days, it was not possible to read novels as soon as they were published because of problems of inaccessibility. Anyway, so there is an incestuous, possessive love that Baka feels for his sister. And he is very angry, and he feels very, very infuriated by this incident. He is raging at heart. Baka holds his sister and comes near the steps to spat at the people for not realizing what actually happened. And Baka starts to talk in a rage, suggesting that Kalinath did something. And all the worshippers immediately become quiet and they leave. Now, the next thing that they have to do, usually after doing their work, these children, Baka, Sohini, etc., they go from house to house begging for food. It was the normal practice in those days. These people were given leftovers by the upper caste people. It is not actually begging because it is rightfully due to the lower caste people. The lower caste people had to go and ask for food, and they will be given food. But it was like a magnanimous service that the upper caste people were giving the lower caste people. They did not easily part with their food. It was very insulting for Baka to do this. Usually Sohini does this. Sohini will go from house to house and get food for the entire family. But when Baka goes, especially because he is in this enraged situation, in enraged mood, he is not able to get much food. And at first he goes to one house and some houses, and he gets only one small piece of bread. And then he's tired of begging, and he's walking in the silversmith's gully or lane. And there he becomes so tired. Nobody is there outside in this hot afternoon, and he is not getting any food from anywhere. So he sits in front of a big house and starts to sleep off. At this time also, there is a stream of consciousness coming. He's thinking of so many things that happened that day, his father abusing him, this and that. And then he is thinking of his life. And then suddenly a sadhu comes to the same house, and his voice wakes the boy. Sadhu was actually a class of people in those days. You can see sadhus in Guide and other novels of this time also. And the sadhu comes, and he gets actually a very warm welcome from the woman of the house. The woman of the house is warmly welcoming the sadhu while she abuses Baka. Both of them have come for food, but she is not willing to give Baka food. And she says, "You have polluted my house." She also starts abusing Baka. Baka is insulted many times already, and now also she is insulting him, and he is feeling deeply pained by the injustice. This is how she shows two kinds of attitudes to Baka and the sadhu. Wow, you have sought strange work this morning. You have wrought strange work this morning, defiling my home. And he says, "You are such lazy people, you and your sister. You never cleaned this street. Did you go clean the street before you ask for food?" Like that, she abuses him. And then she turned to the holy man and heaping a steaming hot vegetable curry and pot full of cooked rice onto the sadhu's black skull of a begging bowl. That is a very dark metaphor that he has given. Black skull of a begging bowl. She says, "Please accept this. The house is all right. He didn't really pollute it." Oh, so Baka did not pollute it. But even then she was abusing him. "I wonder if you have a cure for my son's fever, which you could bring me." So she has some use for the sadhu. And look at the hypocrisy of religion. Look at the evil ingrained within religion. And then the woman goes upstairs, and Baka is still asking her for food. And you know what she does? She throws a very thin chapati from the top of the house, and it flies in the air, and Baka couldn't pick it. He tries all his cricketer's skills, but he couldn't catch it. It falls on the dusty ground. He thinks, "Should I take it or not?" He is hungry. The whole house is hungry. "Should I take it or not?" he thinks. And then he takes it and walks. And he's fuming inside. And this bread that was flung at him hurts him so much. He thinks, "I should not have taken it. I should have left it there." And when he goes away without thanking her, the woman gets even more angry. The woman criticizes the lower caste. "They are so uppish." That is the word she says. "They are so uppish. They are so excited and feeling very superior these days." She is angry at the lower caste man. Both the sadhu and Bakas were beggars, but one sadhu she saw as it is her duty to serve him, while the other is undeserving. Baka reaches home, and father is frustrated because he brought only 2 pieces of bread. Then Laka, scolds him, and he is also, when he hears about Baka's experiences, he is afraid that Baka has retaliated. He does not want Baka to retaliate. Luckily, at that time, the other boy, Raka, brings some bread, and everybody eats. Baka is very unhappy, but not hungry anymore. And Laka gives a lecture to his son, saying it is their duty to respect the upper caste people. And then he also reminds them how when Baka was ill, there was this doctor, Hakim, who did not look at the dying boy at first. And when Raka made such a ruckus outside his house, the doctor came and helped. So that moment of tenderness between father and son in the past, that is a very important scene here. So it reminds us that this father is not a bad father, actually. It is the culture, it is the discrimination, it is the trauma that they undergo that make them what they are. And then the doctor's incident I have described in detail. After hearing the story, Baka is like surprised. He feels strange because he has never, actually experienced this kind of tenderness from his father. And what is, like in Pamela, it is the duty of the landed gentry to which Mr. B belongs to protect the servant class. Like that, it is the duty of the Hindu upper caste people to protect the lower caste people, but they don't do their job. The Brahmins and Kshatriyas, even the Vaishyas, the trading class and Shudras, who are all above the untouchables, in the Varna system, the untouchables are serving these other people, and those other people should take care of the lower caste people by giving them food, etc. But it is a very unjust society. All this justice is being denied. That is the suggestion. It is the Varna system that has gone completely bad, which is being misused by the upper caste Hindus. That is the problem. That theme is emerging in this part of the story. As I said, Raka brings some food, and the family is not all leftovers from other houses, and the family is not hungry anymore. And then after having had food, Baka thinks that he will go and attend Ramcharan's sister's wedding. Now the interesting thing is Gulabo did not invite them. Even Ramcharan did not invite them. But Baka wants to go there because he wants to get a glimpse of Ramcharan's sister. Now, how his love for Ramcharan's sister is depicted. How, listen to me, how his love for Ramcharan's sister is depicted is completely unlike how love is depicted in upper caste or mainstream or middle class literary works. You know, he doesn't even experience love. This is also there in Bluest Eye. The love of Pauline and Collie is not like any other love affair that you will see in other kinds of novels. Both of them used to play together, and one day, as part of a game, Baka played the part of husband for Ramcharan's sister. He doesn't even remember his name. He doesn't even know his name. And he is feeling something like tender feelings. And then, even as he feels romantic, he is also getting a feeling of physical attraction when he feels he wants to, physically pull her to him and, physically rape her. He gets a feeling of wanting to forcibly have sex with her or rape her. That rape is somewhat a normal part of this thing called love for the lower caste subaltern people whose life is replete with violence. All kinds of violence are thrust upon them in every way, and they are incapable of love or any decent feelings in that kind of a deprived society. And the psychological effect of the violence upon them makes them incapable of normal, in double quotes, normal, what is considered normal love. And it is deeply mixed with rape. So he is, for a moment, he is getting a feeling like he wants to rape her. And he is also getting a very physical, indecent feeling towards his sister, you already know. It is not because Baka is a bad guy. It is because Baka has to deal with so much violence and discrimination and evil on a daily basis. And then driving all these thoughts from his mind, he goes to the wedding scene. And there is a big crowd, and all washermen, that caste people, they have come in good clothes, and Baka is looking very bad. And he's standing at the edge of the crowd. Chota also is standing there. And for an hour, they stand there waiting. Everybody is being given laddus. Laddus are called sweet plums. And these sweet meats and all are very delicate things. They are very rare things for all these low caste people. And he is standing there. And finally, Ramcharan sees them. And Ramcharan, comes to them. At that time, they say, give us some sugar plums. Give us also some sugar plums. Ramcharan has stolen some sugar plums and kept his pockets full of them. And he says, let's go. I will give you, let's go. And at that time, again, Gulabo is seeing Ramcharan running off with these boys. And again, she is abusing. Yo, you are running away with that leather worker son and sweeper boy. Come here, even on your sister's wedding day, you are going like that. She abuses Ramcharan. And he says, I will come now. And he runs away to the hills with the two other boys. In the hills, when Ramcharan gives Baka and Chota the laddus, the focus is not on the laddus. The focus is on the stream of consciousness thoughts that come in our Baka's mind. Baka is thinking about a lot of things. He's feeling the beauty of nature. He is feeling, there is such deep description of life around him, nature around him. We realize that he's a man of depth. This is a boy or man of great depth. He can feel insult very deeply. When other people are not feeling insult, he can feel it. And when he is feeling beauty for nature and soft feelings, that also he is feeling very deeply. And he lies on that hill and he's feeling very calm, and he drinks from a natural pool and tries to take a nap. As soon as he fell asleep, he was feeling very tired from all the happenings in that day. For a man of intelligence, even a small insult or a small thing will be very deeply affecting for a man who is sensitive and intelligent. For people who are not sensitive and intelligent, even very great insults, nothing will happen to them. They will be able to take it very lightly, isn't it? So our Ramcharan is a very deep individual, and he's feeling tired, and then Chota tickles his nose and Baka wakes up, and Baka doesn't feel angry with his friends, or he's feeling one with his friends and laughing with them. This is a beautiful moment when he is universalized as we see him as a human being, not as a sweeper boy, not as an untouchable. Throughout the day he never lived like a human, he lived like a sweeper boy. But in this beautiful moment, he's a human being in the lap of nature with his friends, talking and laughing with them and worrying about nothing. I have copied pasted that beautiful passage here. It is a highlight of this novel. The hand of nature was stretching itself out towards him, for the tall grass on the slopes of Bulasha hills was in sight. I don't have time to read it. I don't want to read it. You read on your own. It is like killing the novel if I don't read like this, and if I don't show you the beauty of all this. The research assistant who made this PowerPoint for me actually killed the novel. She took only the plot elements. She is also one person who is writing this exam with you, and she is like you, and she is one of the 30 or more research assistants who has worked on all these PPTs. I'm telling you this because you should understand the problem with our education and our perception. She just killed this novel because she took out all these beautiful moments and subtle suggestions, and she wrote only the main plot. Most of the time people are doing this, and it is very dangerous. This is not the way to study this for an exam like this. You should not kill the novel and present the corpse. You should identify what is lying between the lines, and because all the other ordinary people who are writing this novel might write in very brilliant language the plot of the novel, but your answer should stand out as different because you've read it, and you are passionately talking about these beautiful moments. Did you understand? It is like killing the novel to teach this novel without reading it. Actually, I feel like I should read every single paragraph and teach you, because there is so much beauty in it, so much life in it. You can get it only if you read it. I hope you have read it. Throughout the lockdown days, I was reminding you, read these novels, because I know that many of you did. Many of you were lazy and you were wasting your time. I don't know why, but many of you I know were reading because you were in touch with me and talking to me about it also. Those who read it will understand that when I teach you this novel, you will understand the elements very deeply. If you don't read the novel, it is impossible to understand in the manner that you should understand, right? So it is like this. In adult teaching is like this. University level teaching is like this. University level teaching is possible only if you have already studied the book. You are post university level students also. This is very high level, your level. We should not study the text like we study for BA or MA. Even though whatever questions they ask, if you write it in an international style, the answers, there is no doubt that you will get first rank. You should write above everybody else in that style. And that is what you should strive for. I hope at least some of you understand what I'm saying. Now, he listened to the incoherent whistling of the shrubs. Some of these phrases, etc., that are beautiful, read and keep and use it in your. I have put many slides here, which you will get presently. As he rumbled along in your printout that is going to reach you, we have sent it from here. All this will be given in run-on text, and it will be very difficult to read. I don't know why you want the printout, because it will be impossible to read and understand. These slides are, I have carefully used the spacing and the colors. And if you just open your laptop and open the PPT and read it on your laptop, that is the best way to understand. Because when you write the exam, the color and the slide will come to your mind. I know this. It is a very good mnemonic technique. The slide will come to your mind. I'm famous for this, as my students will know. I'm famous for my method of putting everything in point form like this. So use that method. Even if you get the PowerPoint in printout form, just keep it aside and use this PowerPoint PDF that I'm giving you. Open it in your laptop and read it. Because if you read this PowerPoint presentation that I'm giving you and just watch the videos once, you don't have to look anywhere else. You don't need any other material. That is so comprehensive. More than half of the syllabus I have covered like that in very great detail. And the rest of the syllabus, you don't have to cover in so much detail. If you study like that, it is going to be very, very beneficial for you in the exam. So even now there is time to watch videos. Stop doing everything else. Just watch at least some of the videos completely in just once with rapt attention. That is more than enough. Now, the sugar plums. So Baka is asking Ramcharan to give him sugar plums or laddus, but he is now in a very philosophical, spiritual mood, and he is not actually interested in the physical thing anymore. They have eradicated, these boys have eradicated the intra-caste barriers, and all the traumatic experiences earlier in that day seem to be wiped out. There are references to how they have always eaten together and how they have drunk soda from the same bottle, even though they are different castes. Now, when Ramcharan is giving sugar plums, Baka says, don't give me, just throw it to me, throw it to me. Chota and Ramcharan are surprised. What is this boy saying? What happened? And he says, no, don't give it to me, throw it to me, throw it to me. And then Ramcharan and Chota said, tell us what happened. What is hurting you? We know that something has happened. And that is how Rakha confesses to them about the 3 incidents that happened earlier. The high caste man slapped him unfairly, the priest who molested his sister and cried polluted, and the woman flung bread at him from the top of her house. And for the first time, he unburdens his mind and feels relieved a little bit, talking to his friends. And the friends, Chota and Ramcharan, say, of course, we'll beat up the priest. Next time he comes to our locality, we'll take revenge, they say. And having left his friends now, Baka is going, they all decide to play hockey. And Baka says, okay, I will come. And he goes to Havildar Charat Singh's house. Havildar Charat Singh lives in 28th Dogras. That is a place where these quarters are. And he used to be he's a Havildar, so the military, area. There are 2 sentries there, and there is a solar topi hanging there on a wall. It's a very famous solar topi, and always people are standing there as sentries. And there is a lot of discussion about the solar topi next. Baka has heard a lot of stories. Many people have cooked up different stories about the topi. Those stories are all discussed here. And again, his interest in European, his interest in, living a European life and wearing European clothes and transcending his lower caste life is presented. He longs for the hat, and even though it is impossible, he starts fantasizing whether he'll be able to steal it, or he'll be able to befriend an officer and ask him to give him the solar topi, etc. The the obsession with English clothing is very part of Baka's life, but it also looks like Baka is aware how ridiculous it is. For a lot of lower caste people, they have dreams play a very important role in their lives. Fantasy and dreams of their own life, even though they know that it is impossible to attain that kind of class in their life, they keep dreaming because it helps them to move on. In this regard, I have to mention another important text that is prescribed in your syllabus and which I have discussed in very great length in Udemy. That is none other than The White Tiger. The white tiger is also about dreams and fantasies of wanting to transcend one's lower caste, lower class status. There is a lot of similarity between Baka and the protagonist of White Tiger. I want you to compare these two novels. You never know what they are going to ask. Sometimes you might be asked a question or essay question where you will have to write about many texts at the same time. So these cross comparisons that I'm giving you could be important. Baka is talking a lot about the topi to us. He's remembering and thinking about the topi. And finally, he comes to Havildar Charat Singh's house. The house is closed and nobody is there outside, and he doesn't know whether he should call out, because if he calls out, he doesn't know whether it will inconvenience the Havildar. And he's standing there outside waiting. That is when the Havildar comes out. At first, he doesn't notice Baka. He is washing his hands and feet or something. He's doing something there. And then Baka captures his attention by talking to him. And then Charat Singh asks him, bring me some coal for my hookah. He is using his hookah sitting there. And Baka is surprised that Charat Singh is not showing any untouchability, and he is ready to take coal from an untouchable. And he even wonders whether Havildar has mistakenly said this. Anyway, then he goes and brings coal from the kitchen. Baka becomes, actually, I don't think he enters the house. He goes around the house, I think. I think this is not true. To enter the house, just look it up. I'm not sure. When I read it, I didn't feel like he enters the house. Anyway, Baka becomes, I don't know, I might be wrong. Baka becomes astonished, and he anyway goes and brings the coal. There was another man there who gives him the coal. And it was with difficulty, however, that he prevented himself from stumbling. For his soul was full of love and adoration and worship for a man who had thought it fit to entrust him, an unclean menial, with the job, and his eyes were turned inwards. That is a very famous lines given in this context. So he takes the coal from the cook inside and hurries back. And Charat Singh then remembers his promise, and he gives almost a new stick to Baka. Baka is so happy, overwhelmed with joy. He can't believe his good fortune. And he goes thinking about hockey, and the elder son of Bura Babu, they also have a lot of hockey sticks, and they will bring hockey sticks. And he believes that I will do anything for my entire life for Charat Singh, because he's feeling so grateful for the humane treatment that Charat Singh gave him. Bura Babu's youngest son brings all the hockey gear needed to play. And Chota tells everybody that Baka is a bearer to a sahib to mask his true identity. Chota calls him a sahib's bearer, not what he really is, a sweeper's boy. And Baka shows his new hockey stick, and everyone congratulates him, and they start to play hockey. They were not supposed to play hockey with the youngest boy. This youngest boy is only 8 years old. He is not even as tall as the hockey stick, but he is also included in the game. And Chota did not want him to play, but they let him play. And Baka is able to pass a goal, and he takes a goal. And there is a big quarrel. Over this goal, there is a big quarrel, and they throw rocks at one another, and Bura Babu's youngest son gets hit. Ramcharan is the boy who hit the child with the stone, and the boy falls unconscious and bleeding. Baka's humaneness immediately is awakened, and he takes up the boy and rushes him into the house. And Bura Babu's wife, the boy's mother, starts attacking Baka for injuring the child. That is also very unjust. It is not Baka who did anything, but unfairly he is being attacked. Nobody was ready to listen to him. And he is so angry that the whole day has been so bad for him. And now unfairly, his friend's mother is also attacking him. And he goes back home dispirited. he is sure that his father will abuse him more because he has been away from his house. In the evening, he was supposed to clean latrine and he did not do that. He expected that Raka would go and clean, and Laka and Raka both abuse him because at the time of work, he was going and playing, and he hid the hockey stick in a cactus bush also because he did not want his father to see it, and also nobody to steal it. And he was so enraged and he's so angry. And that was when he goes out and he is sitting near a peepal tree. He thinks that there will be nothing good that happens now, when something good happens in the form of Colonel Hutchinson. Colonel George Hutchinson is the Salvation Army priest, and he is a Christian missionary, a white man. And he is doing a lot of work among the Indians, trying to convert them. He's doing evangelical work. So Mulk Raj Anand is clearly making fun of the evangelical work of the Christians, of the British in India. And his wife also makes fun of him and gets angry with him. And Colonel Hutchinson, he talks to Baka about Jesus. And Baka has never heard of Jesus. He has heard of Yesu Messiah, but not about Jesus. And then Baka is asking questions to Colonel Hutchinson, and Colonel Hutchinson is answering. It is almost like our Vladimir and Estragon talking, because it's Tikomithia. One doesn't understand what the other is saying or asking. And Colonel Hutchinson is also singing. As reply to all the questions that Baka is asking, he is singing these hymns. The red ones are hymns. Life is found in Jesus, only there it is offered thee. Like that, he is singing one song. And then as reply, Baka is asking, Huzur, who is Jesus? The same as Yesu Messiah. Who is he? And again, this man is singing. It is so hilarious. Again, this Baka doesn't understand anything of what he's singing. And when the colonel replies with a song, Baka is still baffled. The answer, if it was an answer, was like a conundrum to him. Words. He felt overwhelmed and uncomfortable. Again, this man is singing as reply. And Baka is asking, what does that mean? He's a son of God. How could anybody be the son of God? He doesn't even understand that concept. And how could he have a son? Why did his son die? And why should we be forgiven? It is hilarious because it is like another language. Baka doesn't understand one word of it. And finally, Baka was a bit bored by this ecstatic hymn singing. Baka was baffled and bored. He could not understand anything. The Sahib, however, was singing. Even though Baka didn't understand, this man was singing. And when the colonel saw that Baka is lagging behind, he realized that the new follower was losing interest and exerted the peculiar obstinacy of the enthusiastic missionary and dragging his boy's sleeve. He is pushing him towards the church, trying to convert him. Baka is attracted to the words of inequality. When Colonel Hutchinson says that Jesus treats Brahmins and untouchables as equals, that word attracts Baka, and he starts to pay attention. And then Colonel Hutchinson tells Baka about how everybody is equal, both Brahmins and Bhangis. But then when he talks about conversion, Baka is not interested. Look at this. He sacrificed himself out of love for us. I am quoting only the satirical parts. All the abuse and all those things I did not quote. The last sentence went home. The rich and the poor, Brahmin and the Bhangi, that went home. He sacrificed himself for us, for the rich and the poor, the Brahmin and the Bhangi. Wow, Baka understood. Yes, Sahib, I understand. Yesu Messiah makes no difference between the Brahmin and myself. Give me a minute. Yeah. And then he does not want to convert anyway. He does not want to convert. They reach the church compound, and why they look at this hilarious situation. While Baka was hoping for a trouser, here is Hutchinson hoping for a new convert. And Colonel's wife is shouting at her husband George to join her for tea. And he tries to, when he understands that his wife is angry at the Blackies and that Colonel Hutchinson is trying to convert him, he feels very bad. Baka runs away from the colonel. He is upset. And even the Hutchinson's wife is angry with him. He is very bad. And he feels that the hatred shown by the colonel's wife was even greater than the hatred of the Hindus that he encountered that day. The psychology of oppression he shows here. There was a black leper sitting there, covered in, tattered garments, showing his raw wounds. This is a very important symbol in the novel. And there were also other beggars, a woman wailing for food with a child in her arms. And Baka is superior to them because he is not a beggar like that. He felt a queer, sadistic delight staring at the beggars, moaning for alms, but not receiving any. They seemed to him despicable. It is almost like how Kali rapes Pecola. Did you understand? Baka is feeling disgust with the beggars, and he is ignoring them. That is towards the end of the novel. He has reached the railroad station of Bulasha. A train is approaching, and everybody is shouting Mahatma Gandhi. And they are all dressed in white because they are congressmen. And Baka is so curious to know who is this Gandhi and Mahatma. So he also goes to a tree, climbs a tree. At first, he leans against a tree. Later on, he climbs it and he waits to see the Mahatma. While he waits, he hears some men talking. So this is the quotation that I have given. You can read on your own later. It is, look at the destruction of the congressmen and the crowd. He is speaking with such satire here. It was as if the crowd had determined to crush everything, however ancient or beautiful, that lay in the way of their achievement of all that Gandhi stood for. Look at the what is it called? Ahimsa and peace that Gandhi is propagating. And look at the crowd. The crowd was determined to crush everything. It was as if they knew by an instinct surer than that of conscious knowledge that the things of the old civilization must be destroyed. It was very destructive, the crowd. And he became aware of the fact of being a sweeper by the contrast which his khaki uniform presented to the white garments of most of the crowd. Most of the others were wearing white, only he was wearing khaki. He was in the midst of a humanity which included him in its folds and yet debarred him from entering into a sentient, living, quavering contact with it. Very famous line. The men around him were talking about Mahatma, and Baka is climbing a tree, and one Babu was saying, one Babu is a learned man. He has the Shakti to change the world. This British government is nothing. Every country in Europe and America is passing through terrible convulsions. The people of Vilayat, the Angrez Log, are less convulsed on account of their innate conservatism. Without a radical change from the hankering after sense gratification, which is the goal of Western civilization, you can't change. You can't change if you are still hankering after sense gratification. That is what he means. India has been the privileged home of world's eternal religion, Hinduism. So this man is speaking in one way, and one peasant standing there was impressed by the Babu's speech. Even though that peasant did not understand much, and Baka also did not understand much, we also have not understood much. Everybody is impressed. Wow, what a learned man. And that Baka and that Babu is talking about Gandhi as if he is a myth. To him, Gandhi was a legend, a tradition, an oracle. He was like a god. That quotation I've given here. The Babu is speaking of Gandhi like a god. And this Babu also talks about Gandhi's Panchayat Raj. This peasant and this Babu are talking, and this peasant is asking about Panchayat and how Adalat will be now like, and whether cases will be heard in the Panchayat itself. And the Babu is replying to all that. And there is also the announcement by one Congress worker. Mahatma Ji was just released from prison. The British government had just imprisoned him and released him on assurance that he will not talk about Swadeshi or civil disobedience or independence. So the government has released him because now he has come to talk only about Harijans or untouchables. And Mahatma Gandhi arrives in a motor car with Meera Ben and his wife Kasturba. And somebody introduces all these people to Baka, and he begins, at first he's praying to the gods and he's singing his hymns, which was Gandhi's usual practice. And Baka feels purged of all the filth of the day. Then he begins his speech. Gandhi is coming and Baka is thinking he's black like me, but of course he must be very educated. Beautiful passages, those passages in the book. Gandhi is talking at length about untouchability. And he's saying that people are being oppressed by both the British rule and also the Hindu customs. He is criticizing untouchability as a greatest blot on Hinduism. The view of mine dates back to a time when I was a child, and he talks about how he experienced untouchability as a very painful thing even in his childhood. He goes on to talk about yucca. He was hardly 12 years old when Mahatma Gandhi saw yucca, and he accidentally touched yucca and his mother scolded him. And then afterwards, Gandhi used to go and touch untouchables without his mother's knowledge. I used to touch the untouchables, and I never would conceal the fact from my parents, and all that. And the horrible state of untouchables in India he's speaking about. Baka listens to all this and he is feeling changed. He is feeling touched. Gandhi also talks about how untouchables should give up drinking, scavenging, eating carrions, gambling. Because if a cow dies, that dead body was given to the untouchables and they would go and eat it. So like that, all these things, they should stop. And Mahatma says untouchables should be given access to temples, schools, etc. And by the time the Mahatma ends his speech, Baka is spellbound. And Mahatma Gandhi also passes by Baka. And all the things that happened in that day, suddenly Gandhi's view of Harijans seems to really pour an ointment or balm over his wounds. This is also something you can read later. He talks about his experiences, his experience of scavenging, and Baka felt thrilled listening to Mahatma Gandhi, and he is spellbound at it. Look at this. The Mahatma seemed to have touched the most intimate corner of my soul. And then two people starts talking. One is a Muslim. That Muslim man is a monocled Muslim. Monocle is like by spectacles, one monocle, one glass. And that Muslim man, who is R.N. Bashir, the lawyer, he starts criticizing Gandhi. Suddenly, another man in the crowd, a poet called Iqbal Naad Sarshar, starts supporting Gandhi. This is the climax of the philosophy of the novel, of India. Sociological elements in the novel are all found in this part of the novel. So these are the two approaches to Gandhi. One is criticizing. He has just returned from Oxford, and the other is the poet who is an Indian who is supporting Gandhi. Oh, this passage actually I've quoted twice. It is India's genius to accept all things. We have throughout our long history been realists, believing in the stuff of this world, in the here and the now, in the flesh and the blood. Man is born and reborn according to the Upanishads in this world. We don't believe in the other world as these Europeans would have you believe we do. He is talking about Shankaracharya. He's talking about Upanishads. He's talking about Vedanta and Dr. Kumaraswamy. There is one passionate speech about Hinduism that this poet is giving. But that is all over now. Right in the tradition of those who accepted the world and produced the Baroque exuberance of Indian architecture and sculpture. See, in brilliant language, he is talking about India in so many different ways. He waxes eloquent on India. And he talks about, this is almost like the speech that our Charlie Chaplin gives in Great Dictator. He talks about the essence of India. What is the essence of India? This can be compared to the philosophy of serpent and the rope. Wow. Listening to all this, the harangue was impressive. With such fire it was delivered. Not only was the crowd moved, but the anglicized Indian, who is the lawyer, was also silenced. Baka was too much under the spell of Gandhi to listen intently to anyone else, but he did not follow all that the poet said, although he strained to catch his words. So speech after speech is transforming him. And Sarshar is talking about the British and of India. He concludes his speech talking about the British Indian Penal Code and the relevance of Gandhi. Iqbal says, and they can do that soon. For the first thing we will do when we accept the machine. He's talking about the flush machine. He's saying that instead of scavengers, the untouchables should be relieved from the work of cleaning latrines, and we should accept the machine. It will be to introduce the machine which clears dung without anyone having to handle it, the flush system we should have. Then the sweepers can be free from the stigma of untouchability and assume the dignity of status that is their right as useful members of a casteless and classless society. This is a very huge revelation to Baka, that there is the possibility of a flush system. Wow, Baka never realized that it is possible to have a flush system and that he could be relieved from cleaning the latrines. And it is Iqbal Nath Sarshar who gives this idea. He felt that the poet would have been answering the most intimate questions in Baka's soul if only he had not used such big words. That machine which can remove dung without anyone having to handle it. I wonder what it is like. If only that genderman, that is how Baka and his friends talk about gentleman. He wants to be a genderman. That is how they say. And this word is repeated throughout the novel. If only that genderman hadn't dragged the poet away, I could have asked him. Baka is standing there thinking. So the solution to the problem of untouchability he is giving now. 3 solutions he has got. One is Christianity. The other is Gandhi. The third is flush machine. Now we have come to the end of the novel. Baka wants to listen to the discussion. He's cleansed of all the bad things that happened. He understands that having a flush system would decrease his problems. And he wants to go back and say all these things to his father. He's a happy soul. So the novel is like divided into 2. At first, he has lots of troubles in the town. Then he meets his father. And then he has lots of solutions in the town. And then he's going to meet his father. Did you understand? At first, all the problems, and then he comes home. And then he has the solutions, and then he comes home. Like that. So an analysis of the ending of the novel. Though Baka remains ignorant of the deeper social and political issues that impact and govern his life, all those sections that dealt with the political, social discussions were for the readers, not for Baka, because he did not understand. He is an outsider to all that. It is obvious that he has grown and matured over the course of his long day. Though he continues to reject his Indian roots, it is possible that Gandhi's speech instilled in him a sense of pride and belonging. He was deeply touched by Gandhi's call for the abolition of untouchability. And Baka is silhouetted against the Indian twilight. That is the ending, the last part of the novel, going home to share with his father these stories. That is a very touching end, and it is symbolic. As the brief Indian twilight came and went, a sudden impulse shot through the transformations of space and time. The connections with space and time and caste and the plot of the novel are not incidental. I did not cook them up. It is there in the novel itself. And gathered all the elements that were dispersed in the stream of his soul into a tentative decision. I shall go and tell father of all that Gandhi said about us, he whispered to himself. That father who is very abusive, from whom he wanted to escape, is always there in his house, and that is the point where he has to return always. Now that father is taking on a symbolic role. That is the tradition of the untouchables. And all that the poet said, perhaps I can find the poet someday and ask him about his machine. And he proceeded homewards. Because the rest of the town is still not his home. He's an outsider there, but he still has a home, even though it is filthy and squalid and miserable. Even though he gets only abusive words there, that is still his home. So he proceeded homewards. Unmistakably, this sounds like the ending of Sons and Lovers, or the ending of Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. you cannot understand Untouchable if you have not studied Portrait of the Artist or Sons and Lovers before. That is also why I pushed Untouchable towards the end of the course, and I dealt with Portrait of the Artist before, because the very gist of modernism I have already discussed in very great depth in my videos on Mrs. Dalloway and Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. I hope you have watched them. If you have not watched them, it's a crime that you are doing to me, I'm telling you, because these are absolutely wonderful resources on these two texts. I have pained and broken my back for days on end studying, reading them. These novels I read more than once for you, for this, even though I have been teaching Portrait of the Artist for years. Mrs. Dalloway I have never taught, but that also I read. It's a beautiful novel, and so steeped in modernist spirit. This Untouchable is also subtly steeped in modernist spirit. If you have read these novels or watched those videos, you will understand the deep connections between these novels. And he proceeded homewards. That is a very remarkably modernist ending. Now, character analysis of Baka. I'm not reading it out here. I will give it to you in the PPT, which will come to you in some Google Classroom or somewhere. The theme of untouchability and the theme of religion. Please read on your own. These are the remaining parts. Now, please go refresh yourselves and get ready for the next class. Thank you. Please read the novel. It's very extremely important.